Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek Interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is a public speaking course called Teach the Geek to Speak. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Gina Covarrubias. She's the founder of Deliberate Doing LLC. It's coaching unfulfilled technical professionals to figure out what they want their lives to look like. She started Deliberate Doing after years of working in the aerospace industry. I look forward to learning more about her journey to starting her own company and her choice to become a coach specifically. Welcome to Teach the Geek Interviews, Gina.
Thank you, Neil. Very happy to be here.
Wonderful. From the bit of research I did on you, I saw that you got your degree in aerospace engineering. What was the motivation for that particular degree?
I did get my degree in aerospace engineering. Neil, I was one of those kids who thought I could be an astronaut. And that was kind of my vision for some time. And then as I got older, became a teenager, that vision changed a little bit. But I knew I still had a fascination for the aerospace field, whether space flight or aeronautical flight. And so I grew up in Indiana, and Purdue was not very far away. And of course, Purdue is known in the aero world as the cradle of astronauts. So started going to a Purdue satellite campus, and it was tough. It was really, really tough. I was a first generation college graduate, and I did not have this college bank account ready for me when I graduated from high school, and I took out a lot of loans, and I got to college, and I was kind of shocked. It was much tougher than I thought. And so I ended up working part-time while working on my degree. So I graduated a little bit later than most people do. But anyhow, for me, it was astronautical engineering at Purdue, and that was it. I didn't even consider another major.
Wow. What was it like going to school while working? I can't imagine, especially with doing something like aerospace engineering or any of the engineering disciplines. It must have been, well, I don't want to assume it was difficult, but what was that like for you?
It was very, very, very difficult, Neil. So as I mentioned, I started at a Purdue satellite campus. So I was living at home with my parents, and that helped a whole lot. I would basically work in the early evening and late through the night. We had some riverboat casinos nearby. So by day, I was a student, and at night, I was wheeling and dealing cards and craps.
Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting. But then I also saw that you didn't stop with just an undergraduate degree. You eventually got a master's as well. But you didn't get a master's in aerospace. You got a master's in mechanical. What was the reason for changing your majors?
That is correct. I started my master's program actually at Purdue, Neil. And what ended up happening is I moved out of state because I got a job offer the first year after my graduate program started. And so I started working full time and basically transferred to the University of Utah. And they had a really great working relationship with my employer, but they did not have aerospace engineering. So I went with the next best thing, which was mechanical. And it took me a few years, once again, because I was taking my classes on the side, working full time. And yes, once again, very difficult to do.
What was your motivation for getting a master's in general?
I had my sights set on a master's degree even while I was still an undergrad. And to be honest, Neil, I even decided I should probably get an MBA too. But I'm going to go for the engineering master's degree first because that's probably the harder one. And while the material was still fresh in my mind, I thought that would be the better option. So my plan was to get an engineering master's and an MBA anyway. I just thought it was going to open so many more opportunities for me in the future.
Did you eventually get the MBA as well?
I actually started to attend a school to work on my MBA. And what ended up happening is my health just kind of failed me. And I was out of work for several months. And I would say that was due to my second depression I went through because of my career. And if we back up for a second, my first depression, honestly, in my professional career was around the time that I graduated with my master's degree in engineering. So it's supposed to be a very celebratory time, and you're supposed to be happy, right? You work so hard, and you got this degree while you were working full time. And for me, all I could think to myself was, I don't want to do this. This is not what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. So at that point, I had had a few years of engineering experience. It wasn't quite what I thought, and I mean, it was okay, but I just kind of wondered, where's this dream job that I'm supposed to be getting? So graduating with my master's is kind of disappointing because I had to realize and admit to myself, this is not what I want, and I worked so hard to get this, and now what do I do? So that was tough. It was really tough.
When you were even when you were in undergrad, did you understand the various types of jobs that you could potentially get with an engineering degree? Because I actually had a guest on not too long ago, and she said that even after 4 years of engineering school, she wasn't even sure about the type of jobs that she could eventually get. And she eventually transitioned out of engineering too into actually being a coach, similar to you. So I was just curious, did you kind of follow that same path of not really knowing what to expect and then finally getting there and realizing this is not what I want?
That's exactly my story, Neil. I had no idea what to expect. I just knew, as most of my engineering colleagues also knew for themselves, this is a really tough major. We're working really hard to achieve this wonderful goal. And it was almost as though we felt entitled. It was almost as though we felt like somebody owes us a damn good job, and we're going to be happy now for the rest of our lives because we worked so hard for this. I had no idea what it meant to be an engineer. I didn't know what it looked like. I really didn't have any expectations except for the fact that I thought I was going to be happy.
Hmm. Well, yeah. I don't think you're alone in that. There's, as I mentioned, I had a former guest who essentially went through the same thing, and I doubt the two of you are the only two. So I'm almost certain that there are other people that kind of felt the same way too. Especially you get this whole kind of narrative when you're coming out of even high school that engineering is stable, you get paid pretty well. So if you're good at math and science, go into engineering and you'll be able to get that job, and you won't have to really worry about paying back your student loans if you have any. You'll be able to live a pretty good life. But no one really tells you, I mean, is it actually something you want to do? Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
And that's really where an internship could have been very helpful. And I know that schools seem to be very good about promoting an internship and, go try different jobs with different companies. And for me, an internship, I really didn't even try to get one. I didn't think about it too much at the time. I just wanted to finish my degree. So
Yeah.
I would encourage people to definitely investigate internships if they can.
Well, you had no time for an internship. You were dealing cards on the riverboat.
Right. Well, and that's true, Neil. It was a choice I made, and that was one thing I sacrificed was an internship
Yeah.
in order to make some money on the side. Yep.
Yeah, I hear you. But then eventually, so you work in engineering for a while, you realize that this isn't where you want to be. Eventually, you transition out of it and you decide to become a coach. What was it about being a coach that appealed to you?
I had no idea, Neil, when I transitioned out of engineering, what I was going to do next or what my life was going to look like. as I mentioned, I did eventually pursue an MBA, and my health just really tanked. And I had to drop out of the program, and I was out of work for several months. And this was my own internal battle. I was still asking myself, where is this dream job? And at that point, I had experienced a few different types of engineering jobs, and I was getting more involved with project management and program management. But at the end of the day, I told myself, you know, I can go to work and I can work hard, and it might mean a lot to my boss, but it doesn't mean a lot to me. And so I found myself really just repeating this narrative in my mind, and it really brought me down. And so anyhow, one thing led to another. My health tanked. I had to leave the MBA program, and it took well over a year for my body to heal. And so when I went back into the workforce after that, I actually had the opportunity to be an engineering academic advisor at Purdue, which is where I graduated from. And so that opportunity really helped me understand how much I enjoyed the one-on-one conversation with the students. And I felt more than any other time in my professional life like I was really making an impact. And so that got me thinking about the whole, you know, maybe I need to do something that's more one-on-one with people. And eventually, I ended up leaving the engineering profession. That was in May of 2018. And my plan was to figure myself out. So the reason I left is because I told myself I made my first dream come true, which was to become an aerospace engineer. Now I'm ready to make a different dream come true. And so I walked away peacefully. I wasn't running, and I wasn't angry or bitter. I happily walked away, and my plan was to live off of my savings for the summer and figure out who Gina is and figure out what is it Gina's supposed to be doing with her life. So my tentative plan was to study for the PMP exam, Professional Project Management. And so I thought, let me study for this certification. Let me pass that exam. I'll get a job as a project manager, and I'll do that while I figure myself out. So I leave my profession in May, and then I take the month of June, really the first week or two of July, and I'm studying for this PMP exam. And it just hit me one day like a brick. I'm standing at my kitchen table, reading through the book and diligently doing my stuff. And I looked out the window and I just said out loud to nobody, I said, I hate this. I effing hate this. What am I doing? I'm studying for this certification that is going to bring me a job, which is only going to disappoint me again. This is not what I should be doing with my life. And once again, it was a very difficult moment for me to admit that, okay, for the last 6 weeks, I've been working toward this, and it's not what I want. So after that moment, I decided I'm going to dive into books and podcasts and courses, and I'm just going to start educating myself and see what else is out there. I felt like, Neil, during my profession, I had kind of lived in a bubble. And I wanted to break out of that bubble and figure out what else in the world could I be doing. So I did not have my sights set on being a coach at that time. I didn't even know what a life coach was. I just happened that August to glance at a podcast because I was looking for a new podcast to listen to. And it said something about a life coach. And it kind of caught my eye, and I'm like, You know, I was very, very skeptical. And I thought, life coach, I wonder what this lady has to say. I'm going to give her a chance. I'm going to listen to one episode and see what happens. And I started listening, Neil, and I was blown away. started listening to more, and I had a light bulb that turned on, and I told myself, that should be you, Gina. You need to be on that podcast. You need to be a life coach. So I investigated different schools and different programs, and they all cost, the range was very wide. And so I ended up choosing the life coach school and went through a year-long certification program. So that's how that happened, Neil. It was not planned.
Okay. When it came to actually becoming a life coach, you mentioned that there were various programs of varying prices. So I guess you felt the need to go through some sort of program to become a life coach, as opposed to just falling back on your experience being an engineer to coach other engineers and technical professionals. What was it about the program, or what did you learn in the program that you didn't know before?
Yes, so the coaching industry, Neil, and most people probably don't know this or don't think about it, it is unregulated. And what that means is that anybody can call themselves a coach of anything. And there are some organizations out there who offer a certification. And I decided, if I really want to be a life coach, people come to me for advice, and that's kind of always been the way my world has worked. I always seem to be the one people go to for advice. And so when I started learning about life coaching, and I learned it's not about giving advice, but instead it's about helping people understand who they are so they could make their own decisions, I thought, oh, well, I don't know how to do that. Like, that's different for me. And so I decided I really, really want to be certified so that I could actually tell people I am a certified life coach, as opposed to just calling myself a coach, which again is not against the law, but there are a lot of people out there who do coach and don't have certifications. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, right or wrong. For me, it was worth investing the money and the time.
Okay. So the people that you work with, is that something that you find that they look at, the fact that you're a certified life coach as opposed to a life coach in deciding to work with you?
I have had some of my clients ask me and verify whether or not I am actually certified. So yes, some clients do actually care about that.
Okay. When it comes to working with engineers and other technical professionals, perhaps this is my own bias, but I assume that it might be a tough sell to get them to admit that they need a life coach. Has that been the case with you, or has it been pretty easy in convincing or persuading people that life coaching is for anybody, even the technical professional?
So the key word that you mentioned, Neil, in your question is persuade. And the reason for that is because when the technical professional, whether it's an engineer or somebody else, is struggling with their career, just like I did before, when they're struggling with, oh, I don't know what I want to do next with my life. I don't know if I want to do this forever. I don't know if I should go back to school. I don't know if this is the right employer. I don't know if I should get up and move and take that risk and try a different job somewhere else. When professionals are stuck in either confusion or career disappointment because it's not what they thought it was, and then here I come along and I find out about me and what I do, it's not a matter of persuading them, Neil, because some people are in so much pain and some people are willing to do whatever it takes to help themselves get out of this funk that they're in. So it's really not about persuasion. When my person is hurting and suffering, they're ready.
Okay, I understand. When it comes to the coaching that you do with your clients, what exactly does that look like? So do you just talk to them? Do you give them exercises to do? I mean, also, is there like a time limit to it? Or this is just coaching indefinitely?
It is a combination of my asking them questions and them verbalizing their answers and being as honest as they could. It's a combination of that along with my doing some teaching as we go along, teaching them concepts that maybe they hadn't heard about. I have a package that I offer. It's 10 sessions, and the first 2 are free for anybody who's interested in coaching, because I want them to understand how I operate, and I want them to get a feel for me and the kind of questions that I ask. So before there's any kind of financial commitment, the first 2 sessions are free, and they're always an hour long. So a typical session is 60 minutes. And usually we'll reconvene weekly, same time, same day every week, or every other week. And what I mentioned earlier, Neil, this is really important. As a coach, I don't give advice. I don't counsel. This is not about meditation. What I do is, you could think of me as a personal trainer for the mind. My job is to expand people's awareness and the way they think about things. Because as I mentioned earlier, I used to live in a bubble, and I think most people do, to an extent, live in their own little bubble. So my job is to ask questions such that I get them seeing their lives from different perspectives, and they could say, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Well, now that I mention it, it doesn't sound so bad after all. And so I lead them to uncover their own answers for themselves, is what I do. Essentially, I teach them how to think critically, not to solve technical problems. They know how to do that. I teach critical thinking when it comes to solving emotional problems.
You'd mentioned that your coaching is 10 sessions. Is there a reason that you settled on the number 10? Is that just how long it takes people to get something out of working with you?
Coaching is, once again, I'll compare it to going to the gym. Neil, if you go to the gym and you hire a personal trainer because you want to lose fat and gain muscle, it's not going to happen in a week or 2. Maybe in a month, you might see some progress. So the reason I chose 10 is because at a minimum, that is an adequate amount of time to be able to teach somebody how to create new muscles up here in their mind. It's a process. It's a process. It's not quick and easy.
And also, is there a reason that you decided to work with technical professionals specifically?
There is a reason, Neil. I used to be the unhappy engineer who was looking for fulfillment and couldn't find it. That was my mission in life. I was looking for it as if it were a scavenger hunt. And I'm afraid that I wasn't the only one. I worked with and I saw many people who were in a similar boat as I back when I was a professional. So the whole reason I created Deliberate Doing, Neil, is because my mission is to help that unhappy engineer or technical professional who is doing exactly what I used to do. They're looking, they're searching, maybe they're job hopping, they're leaving a group because they don't like the boss or they don't like the employer. And they don't realize that what they're doing is running away from situations that they're not happy with, but that they're also taking the same mentality with them to the next situation. And then the cycle starts all over again. So yes, my mission is to help the technical professional, the engineer, not just because that's my world and that's where I came from, but also because, Neil, I could tell you, not just in the college environment, but also in the professional environment, I think the STEM world tends to suppress our humanness. And the STEM world in general does not promote human expression. And I think that that is part of the problem. I think that's a bad thing. And so part of my mission is to help people remember you're human first. You're not just a robot.
You're human first, not just a robot. Yes. I can agree to that. That's absolutely true. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I never really thought of it that way, that of the STEM world suppressing humanness, but hmm, yeah, maybe that's the case. And if that's the case, then they have someone like you to go to, which is certainly beneficial to them. When it comes to, I guess, public speaking in general, was that something that you were always good at? And if not, what did you do to get better at it?
When I was an engineer, I would get anxious and stressed if I had to present to a group. And as I got a little bit older and a little bit more experienced, I felt a little bit more comfortable. And what I realized in the workplace is, and this is not public speaking, but this is kind of a precursor to my answer. What I realized in the workplace is that if I really know what I'm talking about, there's nothing to be nervous about. There's no reason to feel stressed or anxious. So when I was an engineer, Neil, basically I presented because it was part of the job. I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. So fast forward to today, I'm a coach. Part of what coaches do is they teach. And I have learned to absolutely love public speaking. And I really enjoy doing live webinars, really enjoy doing live presentations with an audience. Obviously, COVID has kind of turned things around a little bit, but going back to what I said, when you know what you're talking about, not only is there nothing to be nervous about, but you could actually be excited and you could actually look forward to public speaking. And it's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, I think you're right for sure. And especially in the technical fields, it typically isn't something that is stressed to us, but you eventually get to that point where you see the people that get those promotions, you see the people that get the pay raises. Those tend to be the people that excel in the soft skills. Those aren't the people that are just in the corner doing their work. So it's in our best interest to embrace improving our soft skills, more specifically public speaking. When it comes to also public speaking, or at least putting your presentations together, do you have a process for that? And if so, what is it?
My process for putting my presentations together usually always starts with asking my point of contact, what does your audience want to hear about? What are their pain points? What is it they're struggling with right now? And obviously this year, a big theme has been COVID, whether it's, I'm afraid I'm going to get laid off, or I have been laid off, it's hard to find another job. But it's not always COVID too. There are plenty of working professionals who are just struggling with a very basic, I kind of don't know what I want to do next, or I have so many options, I can't decide. So it always starts, Neil, with my asking the question, what does your audience want to hear about? And then once I have a good description of their pain and suffering, what I do is I have, thanks to my life coaching certification, I have a big toolbox, Neil, and I have all these tools sitting inside this toolbox. And so what I do is I customize my presentation, and I go and I pick and choose the ones I need, and I start putting content down on paper. And once I get my content down, which is not organized usually in any way at first, then I take a look and see, okay, what do I have? How do I organize this? How do I make it flow? What would make sense to the audience? And then I usually cover 2 or 3 really big takeaways during the present. It depends on how long they are. They vary anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour. But that's how my process goes when I put together my presentations.
I know you had said that initially when you started giving presentations at work, you get anxious and stressed. But you also said that if you knew your material really well, and perhaps that was minimized. Is there anything else that you've used to, I guess, alleviate any of that anxiety when it comes to public speaking?
Yes, Neil, self-confidence. I will tell you, when I went through my life coaching certification program, not only did I receive the benefits of how to coach other people, but my self-confidence went through the roof. And I left that program, I'm telling you, I saw the world completely differently. I saw myself in a different way. I thought so much more highly about myself as a person than I ever had in my whole life. And because I was so self-confident leaving that program, and because I still am, that really, really helps with public speaking. Because I understand if I say the wrong thing, if I mispronounce something, if I trip and fall, if something embarrassing happens, so what? It's not a big deal. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You mentioned a couple of things now: self-confidence and knowing your material when it comes to being or becoming more effective at public speaking. Are there any other tips you can offer to the people watching or listening to become better public speakers?
Yes, the other thing I'm learning, Neil, is that practice does make perfect. And the more you do it, even though it could be really tough to start, the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And that's just like, let's say, people being on camera. A lot of people don't want to be on camera. It stresses them out to think about it. And then the more they do it, the more they understand, oh, it's not that bad. It's really not a big deal. So for public speaking, for sure, I would say practice makes perfect. And if you can record yourself and watch the replay, then you'll be able to critique some of the things you've done right and some of the things you could improve upon. And that's a very helpful exercise for people who are wanting to upskill their public speaking.
Wonderful. Develop self-confidence, know your material well, practice, and then record yourself. Those are all excellent tips, Gina. Thank you for offering them. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about the things that you're working on?
The biggest thing I'd like to add, Neil, is that us humans, we're very good. Our brain's job is to go to worst case scenario. And a lot of us live our lives from worst case scenario. And it doesn't have to be that way. So my main function as a coach is to help you understand your worst case scenario is really not as bad as you think. And I think that's important for people, especially right now during COVID and these additional mandates and people that are worried about their jobs. And when you can have high self-confidence and high self-worth, which is what I build with my clients, that's one of my main functions is to help them understand who they are so they can feel self-respect and they can appreciate who they are. When you can bring yourself to that level where your self-confidence is that high, then life just falls into place and it's so much less stressful. And you come to understand, you know what, no matter how bad things get, I'll be okay because I'm capable and I'm strong and I can figure things out.
Wonderful.
So yeah, I just want people to understand that we tend to make things a lot worse than they are.
Yeah, I can see that, especially as you mentioned, especially during these times. So how can people get in touch with you, Gina?
I have a website, Neil, deliberatedoing.com. If you could see the board behind me, that's my name and that's my title, Engineering Life Coach. And I also want to let you know, I don't just coach engineers and technical professionals. I can coach any human with a brain. It's just that my passion specifically is for technical professionals. Go to my website, deliberatedoing.com, and there you will find different video series. I have a couple different series that I've started, instructional self-help videos, and there are some there with COVID too. I've also got a career blog for people who are interested in reading. And for engineering students, Neil, I also have a separate website. It's not a coaching website. This is a side project I started a while back, almost 2 years ago now. It's called advisingstudentengineers.com. And advisingstudentengineers.com is written specifically for the engineering student. And what I do is I basically combine my lessons learned, my tips, suggestions, things I wish I would have known when I was a student, and I put all that in there. And it's definitely geared towards soft skills. There's nothing technical about that website.
Excellent. So everybody, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek Interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering is Teach the Geek to Speak. It's a public speaking course. You can learn more about it at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Gina.
Thank you, Neil. My pleasure.